see you guys in the dark.
So I've been a cosplayer for about 4 years, and actually attending conventions for around that time. I'm 17, a girl, and I've been told that I'm decently attractive. During this event, I was dressed up as Katori from Love Live, so my skirt was admittedly a little short. Cut to the actual con. I'd been there for a couple of hours, and after a mix-up with my badge registration, I was already on edge. Luckily, one of my friends had spotted me in the crowd and pulled me over to them and their group, and we decided to grab a coffee from the hotel cafe. After a few minutes, I noticed a guy staring at me from the corner of my eye. This is normally for cons. You'll always have people looking or asking you for photos, but with him, I felt deeply unsettled. Trying to convince myself that it was just nerves from earlier, I turned away. And rejoined the convention with my friends. After a good 20 or so minutes, we were done and ready to head upstairs to the vendor's hall. I still have that unsettling feeling, so I glanced behind me. He's still there. To give a visual, this guy is around my height, 5'7", maybe a little taller. He's stocky, Asian, and dressed like I believe was poorly executed rendition of Joseph Joestar. And he's just staring at me. Feeling even more nervous, I grabbed onto my friend's back and followed the group down the hall and up the escalator. As we get off, I look behind me again, and he's on one of the bottom stairs of the escalator, camera out, and pointed towards me. I'm starting to get upset now. My friends haven't noticed him yet, and I didn't want to make a fuss quite yet, as I'm not a confrontational person, so I kept this to myself. We entered the vendor's hall. Great, I think to myself. We can definitely lose him here. Wrong. As we turn down the aisles of the crowded vendor's hall, I can still feel his eyes boring holes into my back wherever we turn. At this point, I'm less nervous and more angry that he's been making me uncomfortable. I decided it was time to tell my group that I've been seeing this guy since we were downstairs, and they all agreed to try to lose him. We decided to go to the second level of the con, where we could find panels, as well as the security booth. I moved from the back of the group to the center, and I feel slightly relieved that he's not directly behind me anymore. We run into another friend on that level, Max, a short but intimidating guy who is immediately pissed off about the creep who's been following me. At this point, we're all tired, and we decide to head down to the lobby and hang out until it's time to part ways. I haven't seen this guy in maybe 45 minutes or so I'm a little more relaxed. Downstairs, someone breaks out their cards, and we play Uno, mostly dicking around anyways. However, 15 minutes into the game, I see a flash out of my peripheral vision. Instinctively, I turn around, and my heart drops into my stomach. It's the man again. My friends notice too, and they all glare at him. Max jumps out of his seat and stands there, staring at the guy. The creep is ignoring them all, making eye contact with me, camera still pointed at me. I get up too, and pull my friend Jane up with me. Enough is enough, I decided. Jane and I leave the rest of the group downstairs with the guy, and head up to the second floor security booth. I gave my statement to the apathetic officer, who sort of brushes me off. He told me to just avoid him, like I haven't been doing that all day. Jane is obviously pissed at this too, and offers to drive me back to my hotel so I don't have to deal with this creep anymore. I oblige, and the rest of the night went without incident. The second to last day of the con, I see this guy again. This time, instead of following me around and taking photos, he decides to approach me. I was with Max at the time, and he noticed the guy walking up to us and tenses up. The guy reaches for one of my hands, and I take a step back, trying to avoid him as much as possible. He looks at me, mumbles something about wanting to do me, and walks away as Max and I head back to the security desk. Of course, they did nothing again. I ended up catching the con plague that night anyways, and leaving early on the last day, so I don't know what happened to the guy. What bothers me the most is how calm this guy was. It was like he had no emotion whatsoever. Maybe he had done this before? I've had my fair share of other convention creeps, but this one stands out as it was so recent, and how he kept following me around for what seemed like forever. I have another convention coming up in January, and I'll be pissed as hell if I see him again. So, convention creep, let's not meet again. I'm an art student looking to become an animator in the gaming or film industries. One of my teachers suggested I apply to be a student volunteer at SIGGRAPH this year. Since it was being held in our city, I applied, but I didn't think I'd get in. A few months later, I got an email back welcoming me to AMC SIGGRAPH family and detailing what I could expect as an SV. I was so happy. This was a huge opportunity for me. I can get to meet all kinds of students like me from around the globe and get the chance to mingle with professionals in my chosen industries. The contacts I would make. I got a full conference pass and didn't have to pay a dime. It was so worth it. As a whole, the convention was awesome, and I did meet a lot of great people, both students and industry vets. And I got to see some really cool emerging technology, learn from a lot of informative technical paper sessions, and see a sneak peeks of upcoming movies. It was my last day that I was working at the convention. I had one of the early shifts, so I had to get there very early. It was 7 a.m., and I was walking towards the convention center with my coffee in hand. I was wearing my SV shirt because my shift started at 7:30. We were told shirt equals working, so if we're wearing it and someone approaches us, we were to be polite and helpful. As I walked up the steps, a middle-aged balding man approached me. He had the lanyard around his neck, which signified him as a convention attendee. He called out to me, so I stopped and politely greeted him. It started off innocently enough. He was asking questions about the convention, asking what the must-see things were in my opinion, general information I was happy to provide. Then he started asking more personal questions. Was I from here? Where did I go to school? What was I studying? Etc. My badge had my name printed on it. He complimented me for having a beautiful name, told me it matched my face. I was a bit uncomfortable, but thanked him for the compliment and went to turn around and leave. He moved himself in front of me and got a bit too close for my comfort. He was smiling lopsidedly, his nicotine-stained teeth right in front of my nose. You know what I love about conventions? He asked. No, what? I replied. What happens at a convention stays at a convention. My skin started to crawl. Don't you think it's exciting to lead a secret life apart from your husband or wife? I had mentioned I was married when he was asking his questions about me, so I was really skeeved out. I said something like, "That's not really my thing." He put his hand on my arm and started rubbing it up and down. Why don't you come walk with me for a while? I recoiled like his hand was made of molten metal. His smile instantly turned into a look of contempt. I said, I have a shift to do. Enjoy your time at SIGGRAPH. And I booked it out of there immediately. I was really shaken. I told one of the girls I was working with what had happened. She told me that one of the industry parties the night before, a bunch of SVs had gone together and were dancing. A large group of old men leered at them, hollered and catcalled, and asked them to dance at the tables. I don't know why I was so surprised by that. These attendees were overwhelmingly men from all different parts of the world, and industries that are involved in SIGGRAPH tend to cater to more, shall we say, socially awkward type of person. Still, creeped me right the hell out. When I first went to college, I joined a Facebook group for World of Warcraft players in Massachusetts. None of my friends were really into the game. I'm a girl, girls don't really play games, and wanted to find other people to play with. Got a message from some guy named Chris. A typical nerdy dude. Glasses, very short hair. Probably a little under 300 pounds. He started looking all on my Facebook photos and commenting flirty yet creepy stuff on my profile pictures, like, what a cutie, I'd love to cuddle with you, etc. Which caused my family and friends to be like, who is this? Eventually he stopped, and I forgot about him, so I never got around to deleting him off my friends list. Anyway, so that's the backstory. About a year later, PAX East was coming up, and I waited till the last minute to get tickets. Everything was sold out. Couldn't find a ticket to save my life, so I posted on Facebook, "Hey, anyone have extra PAX tickets?" Sure enough, Chris commented on saying he had one. I was super excited, sent him a message asking if he could mail it to me. Instead, he was like, "No, let's hang out. I'll take you out to dinner, and I'll give it to you then." Now, for some reason, I didn't consider any meeting stranger from the internet precautions. I was so desperate to go to this convention that I was like, screw it. I gave my friends the guy's name, phone number, and Facebook just in case something went wrong, and I made sure the place he took me to for dinner was very close by. So, that Friday, he picked me up at my dorm. When I walked out, he got out of the car and hugged me and opened the door for me, which is fine. I can dig that, I guess. It wasn't until we were waiting in line to get food when he puts his arm around me. And I was just like, and I didn't know how to react. Suddenly, Chris puts his arm down and turns to the guy behind us and yells, "What do you think you are doing? Are you looking at my girl's butt? This is my girlfriend, not yours," and then slapped my butt. I was freaking horror struck, but I still hadn't received the stupid ticket. I could tell this guy wasn't a crazy serial killer, just a very lonely man. I apologized to the guy behind us and told Chris not to slap my butt ever again, and that I wasn't his girlfriend. After we ate, on the ride home, we almost got into a car accident, and I was so ready to be rid of this guy. But at this point, I had the ticket in my purse. Suddenly, his hand is on my leg at the red light. What the heck? I looked at him and was like, "Please don't touch me. We are not romantically involved." When we got to my dorm, he was like, "I brought some DVDs. Do you want to cuddle and watch some of them?" I told him no, sorry, I have homework. Goodbye. Opened the car door. But wait, please, let me come in. Again, I told him no, sorry, I really need to get some stuff done. Well, okay, I'll come in and help you. Then he starts parking the car. Eventually I just jumped out of the car and ran up to my dorm, closing the door behind me. Running into my friend's room, closing that door behind me, locking it, and curling into a fetal position on their futon. The guy texted me several times over the next week, but I ignored all of them, blocked him on Facebook, and never heard from him again.
I'm an art student, looking to become an animator in the gaming or film industry. One of my teachers suggested I apply to become a student volunteer at SIGGRAPH this year. Since it was being held in our city, I applied, but I didn't think I'd get in. A few months later, I got an email back welcoming me to the ACM SIGGRAPH family and detailing what I could expect as an SV. I was so happy. This was a huge opportunity for me. I would get to meet all kinds of students like me from around the globe and get the chance to mingle with professionals in my chosen industries. I got a full conference pass and didn't have to pay a dime. As a whole, the convention was awesome, and I did meet a lot of great people, both students and industry vets, and I got to see some really cool emerging technology, learn from a lot of informative technical paper sessions, and see sneak peeks of upcoming movies. It was my last day I was working at the convention. I had one of the early shifts, so I had to get there very early. It was 7 AM and I was walking towards the convention centre with my coffee in hand. I was wearing my SV shirt because my shift started at 7:30. We were told if your shirt's on, you're working. So if we're wearing it and someone approaches us, we were to be polite and helpful. As I was walking up the steps, a middle-aged balding man approached me. He had the lanyard around his neck which signified he was a convention attendee. He called out to me, so I stopped and politely greeted him. It started off innocently enough. He was asking questions about the convention, asking what the must-see things were in my opinion. General information I was happy to provide. Then he started asking more personal questions. Was I from here? Where did I go to school? What was I studying? My badge had my name printed on it. He complimented me for having a beautiful name, told me it matched my face. I was a bit uncomfortable, but thanked him for the compliment and went to turn around and leave. He moved himself in front of me and got a little bit too close for my liking. He was smiling lopsidedly, his nicotine-stained teeth right in front of my nose. "You know what I love about conventions?" he asked. "No." "What?" I replied. "What happens at a convention stays at a convention." My skin started crawling. "Don't you think it's exciting to lead a secret life apart from your husband or wife?" I had mentioned I was married when he was asking his questions about me, so this really creeped me out. I said something like, "That's not really my thing." He put his hand on my arm and started rubbing it up and down. "Why don't you come walk with me for a while?" I recoiled, like his hand was made of molten metal. His smile instantly turned into a look of contempt. I said, "I have a shift to do. Enjoy your time at SIGGRAPH," and I got out of there as fast as I could. I was really shaken. I told one of the girls I was working with what had happened. She told me that at one of the industry parties the night before, a bunch of the SVs had gone together and were dancing. A large group of old men leered at them, hollered and catcalled, and asked them to dance on the tables. I don't know why I was so surprised by that. These attendees were overwhelmingly men from all different parts of the world, and industries that are involved in SIGGRAPH tend to cater to the more, shall we say, socially awkward type of person. This encounter still creeps me out to this day.
I'm an avid cosplayer, and in 2015, my friends Ari and Morgan and I went for a second year in a row to Phoenix Comic-Con. I was cosplaying Stevani from Steven Universe, and Ari was cosplaying Black Rose Shooter. Morgan decided not to cosplay, since this was her first time at the con. We were all underage and couldn't drive, so we took the transit home at the end of each day. We left the con around 9 o'clock that night and hopped on the transit. It was surprisingly empty, a lot emptier than usual. We found our seats when the doors opened. Morgan and I sat down, but Ari's back was having problems, and she decided that standing was best. Everything was alright up to the second stop. It was a quiet ride, and we laughed a bit at some of the events of the day, but nothing more than small talk. As we were all exhausted from walking around quite literally all day. At the next stop, a slightly older man got on and sat next to where Ari was standing. He had longer blonde hair and was clean-shaven. He wore a suit jacket and t-shirt with slacks. He didn't look at all like the typical homeless Phoenix writer. "You girls coming back from the convention?" he asked. I nodded. Ari looked slightly uncomfortable, as she didn't do very well with initiating conversation with people she didn't know, especially in the outfit she was wearing. "I like your costumes. We all smiled and thanked him nervously. We weren't strangers to the kind of people that hung around the Phoenix Transit, and how gross and irritating they could be. But this guy not only looked well off, but he also spoke very clearly. But he still threw me off quite a bit. I didn't like the grin he had sprawled across his face as he complimented our cosplays. It was at this point that Morgan put in her headphones and was luckily zoned out for the whole ordeal. Morgan was one of my friend's little sisters who wanted to go to the con. My friend wasn't able to go, so their parents let us watch her while she was there. She was a freshman, so not too much younger than us, but young enough to need supervision. I felt very protective of her for some reason, and this guy was giving me bad vibes. The man was quiet until the next stop. "Do you girls mind if I pray over you?" Ari managed. Before we could actually give an answer, he grabbed Ari's arm and my hand, closed his eyes. We both looked at each other with panic in our eyes, frozen with absolute terror. We didn't want to pull away for fear of making sudden movements, and besides that, his grip was so firm it felt like he was going to try and break my fingers. "Dear Heavenly Father," he began, "I pray you look over these angels of light and give them many blessings in life." At first, Ari and I sort of relaxed, thinking he was just a preacher from a nearby church trying to do us an act of random kindness. But then things took a horrifying turn. "I pray you subdue their souls to your servant, Father, so that I may enjoy them as you intended." "What?" He ended the prayer with an amen and finally let us go. Ari desperately wanted to pull on her jacket to cover herself, but she couldn't move. "What can we do?" I thought. "We have to get off right now. God is telling me some amazing things about you girls," he almost chuckled. "Pardon me?" I asked him. He proceeded to put his hand on my leg and Ari's arm. "He's telling me he sent you here for me. I knew you would come." Neither of us could say anything. His voice was a terrifying, hissing whisper as we were visibly scared. "God is telling me it's time to have my way with you, to solidify the end of the reptilian reign. This man is no preacher. He was a psychopath. We had to get off as soon as possible, and next stop was about 1.5 minutes away. I knew there was a strip mall there, and we could get off and head into one of the stores. One of them had to be open." His grip on my leg tightened as the next stop pulled into view, so hard that it left a bruise the next day, and I don't easily bruise. "Come on, my light angels. Get off with me." The train stopped. "Actually," I said, "this is our stop." I stood up and jerked my leg away. He obviously wasn't prepared for that, because his hand slipped right off. "Thanks for the prayer." I poked Morgan to attention and told her to come on, hoping that she wouldn't say anything about this not actually being our stop. To my relief, she followed without any question. We walked briskly off the train and jogged to the strip mall where we found a Subway. They let us stay there while we called Ari's parents and explained what happened. As soon as we got off the phone, Ari and I burst into tears as we told Morgan what had happened. I'm still terrified of riding the transit, and I try my best to get home from the convention any other way. There was no telling what would have happened if we rode the train any further than we did, and I don't like to think about the possible outcomes. My best friend and I used to go to a lot of conventions in high school. We were really into it and would even dress up for them. One time we were walking around when a man came up to us saying he liked our outfits. At the time we were 15. It's not really weird to get compliments like this at a convention because most people compliment you if they like your outfit. But this guy continued to talk to us, asking us how old we were. We replied that we were 15, and he asked if we wanted to come hang out in his hotel room with him. We said no, and he asked if we could walk around the convention with him. We walked around for a little bit until we found an excuse to find our parents and ditch him. A year later, my friends and I went to a different convention. We were walking around the halls. I hear my name called, and I look back, and it's the guy from before. I quickly walk away, and luckily he didn't pursue me. I have no idea how he recognized me in costume, and even remembered my name. So creepy convention dude who was hitting on my friend and me, let's not meet. To begin, I'm a 25-year-old male. My city does a local convention in the summer, which I usually make a point to attend with my friends. During the convention, I was pursuing the art gallery, switching between wondering how I would budget my next few months' living expenses, and being caught in the money-spending rapture of con fever. While I was looking at the booth, a group of girls in RWY cosplay approached me, and one who introduces herself as Jennifer struck up a conversation with me. Worth noting that the cosplay they had was fairly skimpy, and they all wore heavy makeup, making it hard to distinguish age, but all appeared to be in their early 20s. Jennifer and I hit it off. She said she was a second-year student at a major university in my state. We spent the day walking around the con, laughs were had, and things seemed to be heating up. That evening, Jennifer invited me to her hotel to watch a movie. It crossed my mind how abrupt this was between adrenaline from the con and genuinely feeling like I was enjoying my time with her. I dropped my guard. After all, cosplayers are harmless, right? We make it back to her room, and things are picking up. While making out, she pulls away from me slowly and stares at me, while a Cheshire cat-like grin stretches over her face. In a squeaky and higher-pitched voice than she had been speaking to me previously, she giddily states, "By the way, I'm not legal." Giggles as she says this, of course, looking completely amused as though she had just given a stand-up routine. The temperature in the room dropped at that moment. It felt as though time stood still. Finally, I managed to utter a semi-coherent sentence about needing to use the bathroom, before I made a swift exit to the door. I moved quickly to the elevator without looking back. From the end of the hallway, I hear a mockingly cheerful, "Bye!" I continue on my way, not turning back once, swearing that I should be taking a long break from Comic-Cons. This happened last year at Comic-Con. My parents and I live quite a few hours away from San Diego, so when con comes around, we stay with my aunt in Poway for a few days. Usually someone from that family is able to drive us, but since last year they were all busy. We decided to take the trolley to the convention center. There were some panels that we wanted to get in line for first, so we took the earliest trolley at about 5, and we're at the station by 4:30 to wait. While we were standing there, it's just us, the few other con nerds with their Constantine lanyards and supernatural backpacks, and this creepy dude who's pretty obviously a tweaker. Now, creepy tweaker dude is walking back and forth from one end of the station to the other, and when he walks by another person, he doesn't really acknowledge them. So if you don't see him or back away in time, he's probably going to brush shoulders with you. Every now and then, he'll stop and ask someone, "Got a light?" Anyway, the trolley eventually gets there, a little behind schedule, and we nerds all get on, leaving creepy station guy with creepy dude far behind. We get there, and con is basically nerd heaven, so it's pretty fun, and I actually run into a couple of my major celebrity crushes before the event even officially opens. The first time I go to grab my phone to take a pic with them, but realize I don't have it now. I'd meant to take it with me, but since I got terrible reception there, I didn't really need it. And I'm bummed, but make sure to get autographs so my friends will know I'm not lying about who I met. When we get home that night, I spend a little time looking for my phone, but not much, because our time is so packed, and we're so exhausted. Next day, repeat basically everything through the end of the con, including celebrities and creepy tweaker. Then when I sit down on the trolley on the way home, I feel something in the pocket of my coat, and see that it's my phone. Now, I definitely didn't have the phone when I got dressed that morning, so seeing it there kind of scares me. I look through it, and there are pictures of my aunt's house that were clearly taken in the afternoonish the day before, because it's obvious from the pictures that no one's home. An afternoon the day before is the only time since we arrived that everyone was out at the same time. Some of the pics are from the street, but others are from close up, looking through windows. Tons of the window pics are from the room that I was staying in. The cops said that the fingerprints they found on the phone were in the system, and the guy, surprise, it was creepy tweaker, had been arrested for some similar stalkery behavior in the past, but as of today, They still haven't found him. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.